Thanks very much indeed, Alessandra, and good afternoon, everyone. Good to be back, and we're chatting today about improving your next car. And Shane Prendergast, who's the SEAI Program Manager for Electric Vehicles, is joining me. So I'll talk for a little bit there and just take you through things. And okay, so we just quick reminder, Ireland's approach to reducing transport emissions, we don't always ask you to total your annual transport costs and then apply avoid, shift and improve. We'll talk about avoid and shift next week on the webinar. But today is very much about improving the performance of the vehicle that you have and the next vehicle choice. So really kind of that last box is what we're talking about today. Now, as always, we have a poll that we opened on Monday with the Monday email, and 160 of you voted on this. If you're seeing this for the first time, you need to use your mobile phone, and you need to go to slido.com, and the code for today is RYUFEB2023. I'll follow along with that just to make sure I'm not talking over you, just to make sure it's working. And there now, if you're a bit younger and quicker than me, you may have already scanned the QR code, and that's great if you have. And I'll just get this. So just to make sure I'm not talking ahead of you all, I'll just go into slido.com. And basically the question is, this is the fuel cost comparison that's published by SEAI now on a regular basis. And based on what you can see in front of you there, you can see petrol, diesel, electric. CNG stands for compressed natural gas, and LPG. Which would you choose based just on the cost of fuel alone? And don't worry about the caps, by the way, it should work just as you key in the code. So RYUFEB2023. Yeah, and it's working on my phone. So 117 of you, so it's gone up by 10 already in the last few seconds. That's brilliant. We'll give you all a chance to vote, and we'll have another vote for you towards the end of this session as well. And as always, these polls, they're open, they stay open, they'll be open for a while yet. So if you joined us for the webinar in the first week, you can see the results there from that one as well. So we just let that one, and it'll stay open, by the way, folks. And I'll just show you a quick reaction to that so far, what people are, because I'm just watching the time. Yeah, you're all getting there, I think. So Shane, the vast majority of people plumping there for electric, and with that vote will change as the votes keep coming in, but that's good to see. Some still going for diesel, some going for petrol. And I'd say this is just based purely on fuel costs, folks. Okay.
Yes, we'll try and convince them more to go electric now in a few minutes, Connor.
Good on you. Good on you, Shane. Great, folks. So those polls will stay open. It may disappear off your screen just for a second, but they will stay open with those codes, and they will be in the email follow-ups afterwards. But the reason we're showing you that, and the reason for such a dramatic difference in electricity running costs, is that for every, if you can think about this 100% that we have here, think of that as being the 100 euros that you might be putting in. I think someone's already keyed in that they put about 150 euros a week into their vehicle. You need to just look at where it goes. So about 70 euros is lost or used within the engine itself. Another 5 euros is parasitic loss in the water pump. Another 5 euros on drivetrain losses. So if you add all that up, that's about 80 euros. So 80 euros out of every 100 euros that you put into the tank is really consumed within the process, if you like. And only 20 euros is actually moving you around. Okay, 20 euros out of every 100 euros is actually moving you around. Now, how much do you spend on fuel per week? That's the question I'd ask. If it's 50 euros, typically times 50 weeks, that's 2,500 euros a year. Of that, only 500 euros really is moving you around. That's there. Okay, and I think there's a question there, staying there, Shane, from Kieran McGovern. The lower fuel cost would only apply if home charging at night. The home charging has several practical limitations. I think that's open to discussion, but I think the price that you have, the lower fuel cost, and I'll just bring it up again just to show it, that includes an element of public chargers use as well, doesn't it, Shane, in the methodology?
Yeah, it does indeed. The methodology was set down by the European Union, so it involves a mix and it actually covers a number of cars in each segment. So it's an average performance car of the top selling cars in each segment. So it is, you could probably say, the closest to real to world that you're probably going to see for the moment.
There you go, folks. Okay, I'm going to try and keep that going. So just in terms of sales patterns, I've just highlighted that we're buying bigger bigger, heavier cars year on year. That's all of us, whether they're second-hand imports or brand new and used. I've just taken the stats here from beepbeep.ie. And basically what that means is the performance is disimproving of the diesel vehicles and petrol vehicles. The litre per 100 kilometres is increasing really, because we're buying, and we're choosing to do this, buy bigger cars. The other thing, quick reminder, is that the distance driven, Irish cars drive 30% more than the EU average. Now, we'll talk about that next week in terms of avoiding shift. But, do have a think about which journeys you could avoid and shift. But really what I want to do is I want to try and get Shane on mic here now, and we're going to try and pop up a couple of things. But I like this little dinosaur that you have here, Shane, in terms of electric vehicles.
Oh, definitely. He's a great mascot for us to avoid the extinction of or to not be part of the extinction of the petrol and diesel era that we have at the moment. And we're kind of at that moment of the electric revolution, which is the next phase of transport really when it comes to vehicles. And there's so many different reasons to actually make the switch across to electric. Everyone will straight away go to cost, but I might leave that for just a moment.
Keep talking.
And I just want to talk that I kind of I put it into three brackets really. One of them is the comfort and convenience, and people always forget this one. Like, I don't know anyone out there who comes home at night, parks up the car and fills it up with diesel or petrol on the spot right there. Whereas if you've an EV and you can pop in a home charger, you come in, it's like your mobile phone, you plug it in overnight, it's there ready to go in the morning as well. And you can't beat that convenience as well. Then if you look at the actual comfort of the drive, anyone who's driven one will tell you it's one of the best they've ever driven. It's smooth, it's quiet, which is an important one as well. You don't have the vibrations or the noise from a big fossil fuel engine that's dragging you along the road. You've actually been powered by a very smooth, silent drive, which is a very understated advantage of the EVs as well. The next one I probably put in a bracket is environment and health. So as you know, fully electric vehicles, they don't have any tailpipes. So tailpipe emissions from use of the vehicle are actually zero. But it's also not just CO2 that comes out. You have to think of that toxic emissions piece, those nitrous oxides, sulfur dioxide, that type of thing, that does actually affect the health of people, particularly in the urban areas. And actually a study recently in California has linked an increase in fully electric vehicles, zero emission vehicles, to a decrease in asthma admissions into hospitals. So that's very, very interesting piece, and is actually just reinforcing what we already knew as well. You don't have the toxic emissions, the particulates, you're going to have better air quality in those locations where the EVs are. But now it's probably time to get into the big one, which is the costs, and that's what everyone wants to talk about really. It comes down to the brass tacks, but really at the end of the day, if everyone's like me anyway, I tend to think with my pocket a small bit. And there is a bit of a difference when it comes to electric vehicles. You have to think from differently rather than just this is the actual upfront price of it. You have to think more on the total cost of ownership. But it requires that behavioral change, because what we actually refer to is hyperbolic discounting. And that's where big word, Connor, for you there now. That's where people put much more weight on the upfront price of a vehicle rather than understanding the true value or the true ownership value of it and being able to compare on that. So you need to, when you're talking EVs, you need to take into account what are your maintenance costs going to be? How much are you going to pay to fuel your car each year? What's it going to cost to tax it? There's so many. And then there's the other health benefits that we've already talked about there, the convenience benefits. They actually can't put a monetary value on as well. So when we talk about EVs, we talk about that behavioral change, and that leads to the total cost of ownership. And that's why at SEI we've actually developed a total cost of ownership tool that's free to use on our website for anyone.
Thanks for the reminder, Shane. I'll pop that up there for you.
Yeah, do indeed. So thanks for that, Connor. You can see it there in front of you. It's on seai.ie or drivingelectric.ie. And it's a tool where you can pick up to 3 electric vehicles and compare it back to a petrol or diesel vehicle as well. So it'll actually do a number of different comparisons for you, and we've all the EVs that are available on the market that you're able to pick from as well. It will, as Connor has shown there, this is the results you get when you use it. So you can see you have your annual energy costs at the start, if that's what you're looking to get at, and you can see the Golf with the Leaf comparison there. You could nearly say it's about halfway. It's about 50% cheaper to run the Leaf, give or take. Like, that's just eyeballing it there. And then we get to the total cost of ownership. So people are tending to keep electric vehicles longer than they would petrol and diesel as well. That's what all the data is showing at the moment. So we've gone with a 10-year total cost of ownership. So you can see when you take that price, that upfront capital cost that you have to outlay it still doesn't make a difference. It still shows that EVs actually wash their own faces over the lifespan of the vehicle or however long you're going to own it. And in most cases, they will actually come in cheaper. Now, what I will say is we have based our calculations here on 100% domestic charging. Now, we do know people are going to travel longer distances, but when you actually look at the range on the EVs, you're going, unless you're traveling the length of the country, you're going to drive, you're going to come back and you're going to charge at home. Or when you're out and about, the trick is don't charge it, don't put the full charge in it, just put enough in it to get you back home where you can access that cheaper.
Shane,
there I am again thinking of my pocket.
Can you take your camera off because some people are having problems with your sound? So it might be better with bandwidth. Great, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Alessandra. I think, yeah, Shane, I mean, it's exactly right. You have choices, and electricity is available ubiquitously. It's available everywhere. But the couple of quick questions coming in there. Let's just pick one. What's the best option, a hybrid or electric? Now, I've had hybrids for the last 20 odd years. Hard to believe now at this stage. And I would certainly say electric. But obviously, it's horses for courses, because some of the other questions people are asking is how many, and Shane, you might know the answer to that, but can we add a tow bar to most electric vehicles?
You can add a tow bar to a good number of electric vehicles. I couldn't say for certain that you can add them to them all. If you talk to your local dealer, they'll tell you straight off the bat if you can, and you can get tow bar kits that you can retrofit to cars as well. So you just have to make sure that the car has been tested and rated to actually tow a vehicle. And I think if you look at the licensing side as well, there's only a very small trailer you can actually tow without a four-wheel drive, I think it is, vehicle.
That's
need to pull it as well.
Yeah,
so
you
it's
need
just
to get a special license. Yeah, that's it, indeed. And I think, in relation to that, some people talking about EVs being heavier. Some are, there's no doubt about it. And the general trend is upwards. We're buying heavier vehicles year on year. Generally, it doesn't matter whether it's diesel, petrol, or electrical. But like my EV, which is several years old now, so it's one of the older techs, is actually lighter than the diesel it replaced. So it isn't always the case that an EV is heavier. But yeah, and certainly there's no issue with roads or anything like that. And if there's a power cut and I can't charge my car, can you collect me and bring me to work, please?
Not a bother. Connor will pop down for you. No
I'll do that indeed for you. Yeah, I mean, the petrol pumps won't work in the petrol station either. Just to put that one in there. But generally speaking, it's a good question there for you, Shane. Actually, when will the EV grants be withdrawn? When do you think?
Yeah, we don't have foresight of when that'll happen, but a grant in its design is not supposed to be there forever. It's supposed to be there to stimulate the market, get the market moving, and then slowly be reduced. So you can see the momentum is there in the market at the moment. So I imagine over the course of the next couple of years, you will start to see the EV purchase grant be possibly reduced to being removed over the next, you could probably say 2 to 4 years, depending. That's
yeah, I mean,
could change depending on the government.
And the prices are coming closer and closer. I know I went looking there at EVs recently, and there was a €10,000 difference between two similar models. And you can take it, the €10,000 one was nearly cheaper than the diesel equivalent, not quite. So they are changing, but it is case by case. And obviously, everyone's mileage is going to vary, everyone's distance is going to vary. And a good question just coming in there as well, Shane. You might want to comment on it. But I drive mostly in the country in the 80 to 100 kilometre zone, which is the most economical for me. I mean, I think I know the answer, but Shane, do you want to comment on that one?
Yeah, so you're looking to see which is the most economical speed to go at. Well, I think if you kind of look back and say your eco-driving works for EVs, eco-driving works for petrol, it works for diesel. If you reduce your speed, you're going to save on the power you're going to use. Yeah. And that's pretty much the way I would put it, Connor. I think if you've had that.
No, I think that's true, and I think everyone's situation varies. I see there's a question there about 4x4 models. There are all-wheel drive electric vehicles. I think what you're asking for in terms of agricultural work is for a commercial vehicle rather than for a kind of a luxury 4x4. And unfortunately, at the moment, or fortunately, depending on what you're buying, there's an awful lot of luxury EVs available. There isn't a huge amount of commercial EVs available. But I just wanted to answer the question for someone there who was asking about the distance there, Shane. I've popped up. You actually have a trip calculator as well as a car comparison there tool as well. So, if you're interested in these kind of vehicles, you can log in here and look at all the different makes and models. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and if you switch to the journey cost comparator, you can put in your own personalized journeys, single way, return, daily, weekly, monthly, and you can get your own annual mileage from that as well. That will give you the figures.
And someone's just asked the perfect segue to the next section, which is, are electric bikes good for short journeys? So we'll answer that in the next section. Shane, are you happy enough? You've made the points you want to make about that before we move on?
Yeah, there's been so many questions come in that I might do a little bit of a Q&A document afterwards to make sure we've picked up everyone's question.
Great. So just, Shane, I'll just let you speak to this one because this is the supports that are available to people, and then we'll move on to the next one. Yeah.
Yes, so let's run through these quickly. So, I have our EV home charger grant, which is a grant of up to €600 towards the cost of a charger and installation of that charger. Now, just to note, you don't need to have an EV to get this grant anymore, which is a big change. And if you are, say, you're a staff member with a commercial car or a company car, you can avail of it as well. Just remember that. We have the EV purchase grant where you can get a grant of up to €5,000 towards the price purchase of a passenger car. You can get up to 3,800 towards the purchase of a commercial vehicle, and you can get up to 7,600 towards the purchase of a commercial large panel van grant. So that's a new one we've thrown in there last December, and it's a good chunk of change if you're thinking it that way. The VRT relief is covered within the price of the vehicles, just to note, but there is VRT relief for vehicles with an OMSP of less than €50,000. There is the Levity low emission vehicle toll incentive, but I would just point out in this one, you need to contact your toll company, your tag company, and tell them you are driving an electric vehicle. That's the only way you'll get your savings.
That's right.
And that's capped at 500 a year for private and 1,000 a year for your commercial. And the motor tax, it's the lowest motor tax you can get, €120 a year for your fully electric vehicles. We do have some public charging grants that are available at the moment. ACAI, we run our own EV apartment grant, so feel free to reach out to me or anyone on this panel regarding that, and we can chat to it later. It is a little bit detail orientated, so I mightn't get into it just now. And the end of January there, Zevi, Zero Emission Vehicle Ireland, they released the Shared Island Sports Club grants, so that you can go to their website and have a look at what they have put out there. It's a very good grant, so if you have any local clubs, I would get on that if you can. And then they also released their charging infrastructure strategy as well, which would be worth a look for some of you as well.
Yeah, and thanks very much indeed, Shane. And I think that actually answers the very first question that came in. Someone is going from sports club to sports club. Yes, encourage your regular clubs to install those EV chargers. That's what they're for, exactly that kind of scenario. So yeah, so not all the answers are there. Not all the answers are perfect to the large number of questions coming in, but I think we've covered most of them. But just in the interest of time, and thanks very much indeed, Shane, for covering that. Yep, we're going to talk a little bit about the alternatives to car ownership, because obviously no matter what you buy, it's going to cost you money. And this is the poster that will be going out to you around this. What's your next car going to be? Is it going to be a car club, an e-bike, a family, e-bikes, etc.? What's it going to be? So Shane, I mean, I just it's kind of interesting to have this chat, but do people really need a car? How often do they use it? And what I'm suggesting here is, if it's daily, you might want a carpool if it's a commute or a drop to school. And if it's only car, occasionally it's a car share. And I think there's quite a few car sharing apps out there now, isn't there, Shane?
Yeah, 100%. There's loads of them out there. If you look, you've Go Car, Enterprise have their own car share, and you've Toyota Yuko, UFO Drive. There's probably a couple I've left out as well, but just off the top of my head, they'd be the ones that we go to.
But the thing I find amazing, and I have to say now, I'm supposedly an expert in this, but I know it was my daughter who introduced me to these ideas, is they're literally, you pay by the hour and that's it. And it's like I'll pick a number of like 10 euros an hour, but that includes your fuel, your tires, your insurance, everything. Now that's obviously for the smallest possible, make and model, and then you can get vans, you can get 4x4s, whatever you need. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. You just have to be careful. Some of them might have a distance thing in there as well, where you might pay for the further you go, the more you might pay as well. So you just be careful of that and look at the T's and C's.
Absolutely. Now, 29% of car journeys in Ireland are less than 2 kilometres. So you can walk or cycle those. Let's be clear, folks. So, that's a really key one. 63% are less than 8 kilometres. So would you buy a second-hand EV? Now, a couple of people have asked questions about that, Shane, in the Q&A. I think for people looking for a grant on a second-hand EV, there isn't one. It's already in the price. Isn't that right?
Yeah, the grant is associated with the vehicle itself and would have already got it at the point of sale. Now, if you're a used or a second-hand EV, whatever it might be, an import, you can get the home charger grant to help you along with that as well.
Yeah, good point.
And we did put together some information there, Connor, recently to help people on their journey of buying a used EV as well. So you can check out the information there on seai.ie.
That's it. And when you get the slides and the links, you'll see one of the links is going to take you to that used EV blog post. So for those of you asking questions about second-hand EVs, that's kind of the reason. We're not avoiding you. It's just time-wise, we're under pressure. So there is an extensive series of articles around buying a used EV and what to look for. Thanks, Shane. That's a good one.
Someone asked a question actually just on that, and someone understands that from talking to friends, the trade-in price for EVs is very poor.
Not anymore.
No.
That's gone completely the other way. Sorry, Shane, you know more about this than me.
Yeah, it's completely the other way. Particularly, like if I was to buy a new EV tomorrow, I'd sell it today after for an extra 5 or 10k. That's how much it's gone the other way. It's particularly the more recent models in the last 18 to 24 months with the higher range. People are just, because of the supply of new EVs at the moment, people are just trying to get their hands on any EV they can.
I think it's a little bit anecdotal, but a really interesting thing I've heard, people who own some of the older, very short range, these are fairly old cars now, or battery electric cars. They're now able to sell them at a premium, and I've bumped into more than one person who said to me they're selling their really old battery electric vehicle at a premium price now, and that's becoming the deposit on their next EV. That's how much of a premium they're getting for an older EV. Now, obviously quite anecdotal, but certainly, while that point about the lower, if you like, value was certainly potentially a situation in very, very early days. It's long gone now. They're going for very, very good money indeed at the moment. I can see a couple of technical ones coming in, but how many seats do you need? If it's just you, could you consider an e-bike? We'll talk about that in a second. And you get the bike to work scheme. There's a bike to work support there. The average number of people in an average Irish car nationally is 1.5 people. Now at 1.5, you might be able to buy or use a smaller car. Sales trends say otherwise. We're all buying bigger. And if you are like moving people, like some of us do, we've got kids, we've got the sports team. I remember back in the day when I had all the gear for soccer and everything else. Maybe consider an MPV, sort of a more people mover type van type vehicle rather than an SUV, which is very much a kind of faux 4x4 type vehicle. Last thing to consider is how big is the load. Longer is better than higher, right? Just if you're buying. And obviously, if you are going to say settle for a smaller car for day to day, or indeed an e-bike or anything else for day to day use, don't forget when you need to do a big shop or a run to, IKEA or somewhere like that, or Woodies, you can just borrow a van. I mean, I know here in my area there's vans available, and I've done it, to help people move apartments and things like that. I've just grabbed the van for a few hours and gone off and done it. So all that kind of stuff is there, and you can get 4x4s when needed on a pay by the hour basis. So it's just open up the conversation around it and get you thinking about it. In terms of costs, average Irish car costs about €10,000 a year. Can we buy travel by the hour? Yes, we can. There's plenty of apps out there. And, that car and van share that we spoke about is €10 per hour all in. Then in terms of e-bikes, obviously if you're just commuting alone, you may want to consider an e-bike. I went looking for the cheapest brand new e-bike I could. I found one for €660. That's a picture of it there online. That's in Ireland. Generally speaking, Shane, what would you reckon? A couple of grand for an e-bike?
Yeah, like you're probably looking at 1.5, and it's a big range of price that depending on how big you want to go on and what your budget is, but you could go up to 5, 6 easily.
Yeah, I know. I didn't, but I know what you mean. Yes. And then if you're doing the family crash drop off, I'm certainly seeing these on the roads a lot more. These multi-seat cargo type bikes as well. There's lots and lots of variety out there as alternatives to car ownership. Now, I've got a quick Slido poll coming up here in a second if you want to get your phones ready. But in terms of making a comparison, it's always going to be complex. Everyone's going to be different, and there's going to be a lot of different issues that you'll want to consider. But like, if in terms of looking at a bike, it's a few €100 to buy one new. An e-bike, possibly €2,000. The car club doesn't cost anything to join, right? Just to be clear, or the car share. If you're going to buy a diesel or buy a battery electric, there's no doubt there's a premium price there for the different vehicles. Do you have to pay motor tax? Obviously you do with certain types of vehicles. It's cheaper on the battery electric. Do you have to buy insurance? You do with the cars, but with the the bikes, etc. There's no insurance. There's no fuel cost. There's no parking. You can park for free as well. So, you're looking at dramatically lower transport costs with some of these other options. And that's what we're really trying to highlight to you. We had a quick look at some of the car share prices. 10 to 13 euros per hour is what they were charging for a typical car. And some of them even offer EVs, roughly 50 cents per kilometre. And you can see there how these compare out. So there's quite a variety out there, and it's just to try and open you up to ideas. But just to bring that matters to a close, because we try and get things done within the half hour, is what it will your next new or used car be. And again, if you go to slido.com and you've kept that window open on your phone, it should be coming up there now, and you'll have the options on your phone to vote as a result of the quick chat that myself and Shane have had with you here today. What would you buy? Now I can see 4 votes, 5 votes coming in, and these polls will stay open, and they will also be included in the email that you get at the end of the week, so you'll be able to see what people said. You'll be able to look back and see what people are saying, but we're showing it interactively here there today. And while people are chatting there, Shane, I just see if there's any other urgent questions we need to deal with.
Yeah.
Oh, how long is the battery guarantee for? What do you think?
Depends on the make and model, but it's what we have in our grant program has to be a minimum of 5 years or 100,000 kilometers to qualify for a grant. And most of them will actually exceed that. There's some offering 8 years, 160,000 kilometers, but like if you shop around, you can get the best warranties. Like it says it all that OEMs are actually putting that size of a warranty against the batteries in the vehicles because they're not going to cash themselves out. They know what the vehicles can do, and even the data and research behind it are showing you can do 10, 12, 15 years out of an EV battery.
Easy. Yeah. Now, actually, there's a really, really good question just coming in at the end there from Enda, which I think is really appropriate note to end on, because I think we have a very positive answers. I'm a little bit disappointed that this talk is so urban-based. Most of the suggestions are not suitable for rural life. I'd have to disagree with that. I think most rural homes that I see have their own driveway, which means that they've got more than enough space to park and put in a charger. I'm not seeing any distances from, certainly on cars recently, 200 kilometers a day, perfectly doable in an EV. What do you think, Shane?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, I'd even say 300 kilometers or even more is achievable each day. And what I'd say that is how many people out there actually travel 300 kilometers or more every single day.
Well, we're seeing some people, the amount of money they're spending on fuel, they certainly are. 100,000 kilometres is 3 to 4 years in the countryside. Yeah, that's probably right, Francis. About 25,000 kilometres a year. Average in Ireland is about 13 to 16,000 kilometres a year. So when you balance it out, that would be correct. In terms of snow, not an issue. And in terms of the rural question, I would say rural dwellers are spending more money on fuel. You're traveling further. An EV is a much, much better value option. It's going to reduce your expensive transport costs. So whilst we're out of time here now, I'd certainly say that's a debate. It'll probably be going on for quite a while, but an EV is more suitable for rural because it's going to save you more money, right? And ultimately, that's really what we're about here in terms of this conversation. Any comments to close there, Shane, just on the results, or any other comments you've seen coming in?
Just like to echo what you said there about the EVs are actually more suited to rural. When they first came out, the first gen, yes, 100%. They were more suited to the urban dwellers. But now that the range has flipped and gone up to that 350, 400, 450, it's now actually more apt that it is better for the rural people because they have the off-street parking, as you said, and they do the longer journeys. And the more you drive an EV, the cleaner it gets, the greener it gets, and the cheaper it gets.
Yeah, and I just say to people, just in case you think I'm not walking the talk, I own a 5-year-old EV, very small battery on it because that's all I could afford at the time. I've done 30,000 kilometers a year, business working miles in it, no problem, right? So obviously it is horses for courses. Some of you'll have, things to carry in the back and bits and pieces. So that we're not there yet in terms of it being the absolute answer, but it's certainly getting there. Okay. And I think that's us, Alessandro. I think we really have to bring it to a close, don't we, from a time point of view?
I think we do, but thank you very much, everyone, for your questions. I'll put those into a Q&A document because I think there's some really relevant questions in there that we didn't get a chance to get to.
Brilliant questions in there. Can I just say to everyone, thank you so much. There's some fantastic questions in there. It's brilliant. Yeah. Okay.
And thank you very much, Shane and Connor, for a really interesting and informative webinar.
Thank you.
Very welcome.